Why did she always find herself alone at the edges of crowds? The morning sun rose over Oceanside Beach, spilling gold across the Pacific, yet Catherine Winslow knelt in the sand as if the world had paused around her. To the joggers, surfers, and families walking the shoreline, she was no one special, just a woman in jeans and a faded sweatshirt, her chestnut hair pulled back, eyes searching for seashells. Ordinary, harmless, invisible, that was the point. But invisibility came at a cost. She traced her fingers through the damp sand, adding a scallop shell to her basket. It should have been a simple ritual, calming, grounding. Yet a faint glimmer caught her attention, not the glint of shell, but a darker stain clinging to the grains, spreading out like ink. She frowned, leaned closer. Red, too red. Her body reacted before her mind caught up. She rose, her basket forgotten, her steps light but purposeful as she followed the droplets that led toward the cluster of boulders at the far end of the beach. Each drop told a story, a stumble, a desperate clutch at life, a trail written in blood. "Hello," her voice carried only to the waves, no response. When she rounded the largest rock, her breath froze. A young Marine slumped there, PT gear soaked crimson, his hand clamped tight against his ribs. His face was pale, lips trembling with shallow breaths. He looked up at her, eyes wide with pain and recognition. Kate didn't think. She dropped to her knees, movements sharp and efficient, the mask of the gentle art teacher dissolving into something colder, practiced. "Sir, can you hear me?" Ambushed jogging knife. His words were ragged. She pulled off her sweatshirt, folded it fast, pressed it to the wound with steady hands. "Not panic. Never panic. Apply pressure here. What's your name, Marine?" "Corporal James Dixon." Her phone was in her hand before he finished. "Not 911. A different number, direct." Her voice was low, commanding. "This is Catherine Winslow, North End, Oceanside Beach." Marine stabbed lower right rib cage, losing blood. 10 minutes is too long, make it 5. She ended the call, pocketed the phone, and pulled a kit no civilian should have been carrying. Gloves, gauze, antiseptic. Her voice softened only slightly. "Corporal Dixon, this will hurt." As she cleaned the wound, his confusion grew. His breath steadied, but his eyes studied her face. "You're not just a civilian, are you?" Her lips curved in a faint smile. "Today, I'm just your good Samaritan. Hold still." Minutes later, the bleeding slowed under her field dressing, his color marginally improved. The siren wailed in the distance. He clung to her gaze. "Who are you?" She hesitated, then lied the way she had learned long ago, calm, believable, simple. "Kate Winslow. I teach art at the base community center." "No, ma'am," he whispered, shaking his head weakly. "You dress wounds like a recon medic." Her smile didn't falter. "The ambulance is here, you'll be fine." She stepped back, vanishing before help arrived. When the corpsmen lifted Dixon, they found a professional-grade dressing. One glanced at the other. "Who patched you up?" "The art teacher," Dixon rasped. "Kate Winslow." Later, as she walked through Camp Pendleton's gates, basket of seashells tucked under her arm, the guards waved her through without question. One of them, Sergeant Major Frank Miller, gave her a longer look, one part respect, one part suspicion. She returned the nod. That silent exchange was older than her cover story. Inside, she stopped only when Rear Admiral Thompson appeared, his limp slowing him but not diminishing the steel in his eyes. "Miss Winslow." "Admiral," she answered, as if they were strangers. "How, Corporal Dixon?" "Stable," she replied. Her voice was calm, but the Admiral studied her face as though searching for cracks. "Dixon says an art teacher saved his life," he said. She shrugged. "I found him, basic first aid." Thompson's tone carried doubt. "That wasn't seaweed he stumbled into. That was a Spetsnaz blade, not your average oceanside mugging." Kate's mask slipped for half a breath. "Russian." "Walk with me," he said. They moved through the base, Marines saluting the Admiral, families waving at Kate with warmth that belonged to a beloved art teacher, not to the woman she truly was. We've intercepted chatter, Thompson said quietly. Dormant assets waking. Old codes. Colonel Pierce took command 3 days ago, the same Pierce who went missing in Kandahar 2012. His jaw tightened. Now Dixon attacked and his wife running your committee. Kate's gaze didn't shift, but her pulse quickened. Dixon wasn't random. He found unauthorized equipment before Pierce shut it down. I see, she said softly. Do you? Thompson pressed. Because if I'm right, we're all in danger, especially those who know too much about Kandahar. Kate met his eyes, steel meeting steel. She didn't flinch. Thompson gave her the last blow. He's coming home 3 days. For an instant her shoulders straightened, the mask cracking enough to reveal something else. Hope, fear, love. She said nothing more, but that silence told Thompson everything. By afternoon she was back at the community center, scrubbing Dixon's blood from her shirt, pulling on spare clothes, painting with children. Ordinary again, at least to anyone who wasn't watching closely. But one person was watching, Veronica Pierce. Immaculate hair, polished nails, venom behind every smile. She handed Kate a folder, budget cuts, half her supplies gone, her classroom reassigned. These cuts will hurt the children, Kate said evenly. Perhaps fewer officers' wives would complain if you didn't spend so much time with their husbands, Veronica replied, voice sharp as glass. Kate didn't rise to the bait. I consult with all parents professionally. Veronica leaned in, her eyes narrowed. Something about you doesn't add up. My husband thinks so too. For a flicker of a second, Kate's mask slipped, predator eyes, calculating, dangerous. A shadow of who she truly was. Veronica saw it. Your husband has excellent instincts, Kate said, her smile cool, controlled. It should have ended there. But later, as Kate walked the hall, she heard voices through a half-open door. Pierce's voice. Another Russian, unmistakable. She angled her phone, snapped photos through the crack. Colonel Pierce, FSB operative, together. In a locked bathroom stall, she scanned the images, sent them encrypted, deleted every trace. By the time she emerged, her phone looked harmless again. But the truth was out. She was not just an art teacher, she was Nightingale. And someone, maybe too many someones, was about to remember exactly who she really was. How many times could she lie in one day before the weight of it crushed her? Kate Winslow washed the last trace of blood from her hands in the staff bathroom of the community center. Her reflection stared back at her. Calm blue eyes, neat ponytail, a woman with nothing to hide. But beneath the surface, she felt the pulse of truth hammering like a hidden drum. The phone in her locker was wiped clean. The photos she had captured of Colonel Pierce and the Russian were already gone, transmitted, vanished into encrypted silence. But silence didn't erase risk. She dried her hands, adjusted her blouse, and nearly collided with Veronica Pierce in the hall. Immaculate as always. Designer suit, flawless hair. A woman who looked like she belonged in Washington, not in a modest base community center. Winslow, Veronica said, her voice sweetened poison. I've been looking for you. Kate forced a polite smile. Mrs. Pierce, how can I help? The answer came in the form of another file shoved into her hands. Budget cuts, relocations, a systematic dismantling of the art program. These cuts will make it hard to serve all the children, Kate said, keeping her voice steady. Perhaps, Veronica replied, her nails tapping against her arm. If you weren't spending so much time with other women's husbands, we'd see more value in your program. It was bait, and Kate nearly took it. For a heartbeat, her training screamed at her, neutralize, end the threat, silence her. Her fingers twitched, the tiniest betrayal. Veronica's eyes sharpened. She had seen it. Kate smoothed her features. I consult with all parents, Mrs. Pierce, professionally. Veronica leaned close. My husband says something about you doesn't add up. Kate gave her a cryptic smile, then walked away. But inside she felt the tremor of a truth she hadn't wanted to admit. Veronica Pierce was more than a jealous wife. She was watching, calculating, waiting. Hours later, in the quiet of her beachfront cottage, Kate prepared herself for the night. Bread baked, sensors checked, perimeter secure. She changed into simple clothes, carried her dinner plate to the sink, and at 2100 hours moved to the guest room. Her palm pressed against the thermostat. A hidden scanner clicked. The wall slid open. The room behind it would have shocked anyone who believed she was just an art teacher. Banks of monitors, secure communications, weapons disguised but ready, a surveillance hub watching over Camp Pendleton itself. Kate sat, her posture shifting from gentle teacher to operative. Fingers flew across keys. The secure channel opened. Asset Nightingale reporting. Confirmed presence of FSB operative Volkov. Direct meeting with Colonel Pierce. Requesting access to comm center. Timeline accelerated. She paused, then added, local asset compromised. Corporal Dixon attacked this morning. Alive but neutralized as info source. Admiral Thompson aware of increased threat. The reply came fast. Confirmation received. Maintain cover. Extraction possible if compromised. Kate's breath caught as she typed the next words. Status of operator ghost. The pause was longer this time. Then, inbound, ETA 72 hours, maintain cover. Her chest tightened. 72 hours, 3 days, James was coming home. Her husband, her partner, her ghost. She closed the channel, leaned back in her chair, and let the silence of the room press against her. 3 days. If she could survive that long, everything might change. But the past had a way of catching up. Her eyes drifted to the monitors, to the feed of Colonel Pierce's office. She should have stayed focused. Instead, memory pulled her backward to Iraq, 2003. Heat waves on the streets of Fallujah. A younger Kate, cover blown, hunted through alleys, cornered in a crumbling building with only 2 bullets left. She had thought it would be her final day. And then he came. James Winslow, Lieutenant Navy SEAL, moving like a phantom, ruthless efficiency in every strike, every shot. He had carried her out under a rain of gunfire, blood on his shoulder, a grin on his lips. Terrible luck, ma'am, he'd said. She had answered without fear. And you have terrible timing. That had been the first thread. There had been others. Baghdad 2003, Afghanistan 2005, Moscow 2008, their paths crossing, colliding, intertwining, until marriage bound them in secret, a union hidden even from the files of the CIA and the Navy. To the world they were separate, to each other they were everything. And now he was returning. Her monitors flickered with movement, pulling her back to the present. Colonel Pierce, late at night, entering the communications hub with Russian contractors. Equipment cases in hand. Too large, too heavy, too dangerous. Kate captured images, logged evidence, transmitted files. Then a red alert flashed on another screen. Perimeter breach. 2 figures approaching her cottage from the beach, movements too precise to be casual. She moved instantly. Photos rearranged, books shifted, shelves disguised, the hidden room sealed. By the time the knock came, she was in the kitchen, flour on her hands, kneading bread. Miss Winslow, a badge flashed. Sergeant Walsh, base security, Corporal Hernandez, we need to ask you a few questions. Of course, Kate said, feigning confusion. She led them into her living room, every detail staged to perfection. Art projects on the table, simple photographs on the wall, a life built from lies but convincing. Where were you this morning between 500 and 700? Walsh asked. I was here until 6, then collecting shells at the beach. Why? Did you encounter anyone? Kate hesitated as though struggling to recall. Oh yes, an injured Marine. I helped him until the ambulance arrived. Is he all right? Their exchange of glances confirmed their doubts. You administered a combat-grade dressing, Hernandez said flatly. Kate blinked, smiled softly. I wouldn't call it combat-grade, Red Cross training. I work with children, safety matters. The questions stretched for 20 minutes. her background, her relationships, her routines. She answered each one with the right balance of sincerity and ignorance, weaving the mask tighter. At last Walsh asked, "Do you live here alone?" Her voice softened, a practiced tremor. "Yes, just me. My fiancé was killed in Afghanistan 5 years ago. I never tried to share my life again." The lie landed with precision. Their faces softened. Sympathy dulled suspicion. "I'm sorry for your loss," Walsh said, his tone almost kind. She offered a sad smile. They left believing the story. But the moment the door closed, Kate returned to the hidden room. Fingers to the keyboard. Cover holding. Questioning escalated. Pierce directing investigation personally. Request Ghost ETA update. The reply, 48 hours. She closed her eyes. 48. She could endure 48. She had to. But then came the final message. Operation Kandahar files declassified. Ghost team only. Proceed with extreme caution. Pierce primary suspect. Veronica Pierce confirmed SVR asset. Her stomach clenched. Veronica Pierce wasn't just jealous. She wasn't just bitter. She was Russian intelligence. And she knew, somehow she knew, exactly who Catherine Winslow really was. The mask was cracking. The clock was ticking. And the ghosts of Kandahar were about to rise again. Why did Sergeant Major Miller's eyes always feel like they saw more than they let on? That morning, when Kate stepped onto the base an hour early, he was waiting near the maintenance facility, clipboard in hand, coffee steaming beside him. To anyone else, he looked like an aging veteran still clinging to routine. To her, he looked like someone who knew things he shouldn't. "Morning, Miss Winslow," he said warmly, but his gaze was sharp, studying her. "Bit early for art class, isn't it?" Kate smiled faintly, holding out a wrapped loaf of bread. "Thought you might enjoy this with your coffee." He took it, nodding, his eyes softening just enough to tell her he understood the signal. Bread was their code for trouble. "Kind of you," Miller said. "Why don't you come in for a cup, just brewed fresh?" Inside his small office, he shut the door, set the bread aside, and flipped on a device that filled the room with a low hum. The sound of safety. "You're in trouble, girl," he said bluntly. "Pierce has been asking questions all night. Ordered a background check right down to your kindergarten teacher." Kate leaned against the wall, steady but tense. "I know, his wife's been gunning for me for weeks, but this feels different." "It is," Miller said grimly. "Pierce is working with the Russians. I figured as much when those contractors showed up carrying equipment I've never seen in any legitimate comms upgrade. He's having them install it in the East Sector hub today." Kate's jaw tightened. "I need access." "Janitor called in sick this morning. Convenient, isn't it?" Miller raised a brow. "I could assign you as temp cleaning staff, community service credit." Her lips tugged into the faintest smile. "Always looking out for me, aren't you?" "Promised your father I would." The words struck harder than she expected. "You knew my father." Miller reached into his drawer and pulled out a faded photograph. Two men stood side by side, one, a young Miller, the other, a tall man with Kate's same piercing blue eyes, her father. "Thomas Winslow saved my life more than once," Miller said softly. "Berlin, 83, pulled a defector out from under the Stasi's nose. Best intelligence officer I ever met, most principled." Kate traced the photo with trembling fingers. "I had no idea. Your dad gave me this before his last mission to Moscow. Told me to keep an eye on his daughter if anything happened. Recognized you the moment you walked onto this base. You've got his eyes. The same way of watching without seeming to." Emotion pressed at her throat, but she swallowed it down. "Thank you," she whispered. Miller nodded, understanding all she didn't say. Then he leaned closer. "Your husband's coming, isn't he?" Kate froze. "You know James?" "Know of him," Miller said with a ghost of a smile. "Man's a legend. If he's inbound, then things must be worse than I thought." "They are," she kept her voice low. Operation Suryaga, Kandahar, it's all connected, Pierce, the Russians. Miller's face darkened. That op cost us 16 men, if Pierce was the one who sold them out. We need proof, Kate cut in. Concrete evidence. He reached into his desk again and slid an access badge across. Temporary maintenance credential. Gets you into most places. High security sections. You've got a 3-second blind spot during the 1300 system reset. That's your window. Kate pocketed it, eyes meeting his. Any allies I should know about? Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez, logistics officer. Her husband was in Kandahar, made it out alive, never walked again. Pierce blocked his full disability. She'd burn him to the ground if she knew the truth. Kate nodded. I'll move fast. Pierce's men are already circling me. Careful, Miller warned. Those Russians aren't just analysts. They've got the look of Spetsnaz. Her voice was steady, but her eyes hardened. I've dealt with Spetsnaz before. For the first time, Miller gave her a look of unguarded respect. I bet you have. Now go catch yourself a traitor. By noon, Kate moved through the base in the plain clothes of a maintenance worker, clipboard in hand, tool bag slung at her side, invisible again. She trailed the Russians, logging every case, every junction they tampered with. The program hidden in her multi-tool recorded frequencies, captured transmissions. The evidence was building. At 12:45, she positioned herself by the East Sector hub. The shift change came at precisely 1300. Cameras blinked off for 3 seconds. She slipped inside. The room smelled of ozone and warm metal. Racks of servers blinked with quiet lights. At first glance, everything looked ordinary, but she knew what to look for. Small devices tucked against junctions, nearly invisible, parasites feeding on the heart of the base. She photographed them all, then inserted a flash drive into the terminal. Her program began creating a ghost copy of all data traffic, proof that the system was compromised. Voices echoed from the hall. She yanked the drive, slid it into her pocket, and opened a maintenance panel, clipboard up, wires exposed. When the door opened, she looked up with practiced confusion. Colonel Pierce, she said lightly. Sergeant Major Miller assigned me here. Paint incident in the officer's mess. Community service. He took the clipboard, studied it. This says tomorrow. Kate feigned embarrassment. Oh, I must have misread. I'll come back. No need, Pierce said smoothly. Since you're here, finish under supervision. The way he glanced at the Russian operative made her skin tighten. They suspected her. She crouched, fiddling with wires. Behind her, Pierce's voice came casual but sharp. My wife says you're quite the artist. Former war correspondent turned art teacher. Unusual change. Kate smiled faintly. War zones change perspective. I wanted to create beauty instead of documenting destruction. Admirable, Pierce said, though unusual for someone with your background. Her heart slowed deliberately, calm. My background. Your father was military, wasn't he? Army logistics. Yes, Kate lied. Nothing exciting, paperwork. Strange, Pierce murmured. I could have sworn I saw his name on a different roster. Before she could answer, the door opened again. Colonel Pierce, Admiral Thompson's voice cut sharp. Why are civilian contractors in a classified hub without clearance? Pierce's jaw clenched. Authorized consultants, system upgrades. Not according to NavCom. Thompson held up a tablet. All external work suspended pending Pentagon review. Pierce's smile was thin. This is my jurisdiction. And comms fall under mine, Thompson snapped. Winslow, are you finished? Yes, Admiral. Then you're free to go. Class to teach, isn't it? She slipped past Pierce, feeling his glare scorch her back. In her classroom minutes later, children gathered around her as if nothing had happened. Their small voices, their laughter, it anchored her. For an hour, she let herself be the teacher again. She showed them how to fold paper into shapes, how to pour their longing for absent parents into color. but her mind never left the evidence in her pocket, or the shadow of Pierce's suspicion. After class, she moved to the base chapel. She needed an ally, and she found one, Rodriguez, lighting a candle at the side altar. "Commander," Kate said softly. Rodriguez smiled. "Thank you again for defending your program yesterday. My son hasn't had nightmares since your classes." Kate's face softened. "I'm glad, but I need to speak with you privately." They stepped aside, voices low. "It's about Colonel Pierce," Kate began, "possibly about Kandahar." Rodriguez's face hardened instantly. "What do you know?" "Not everything, but enough to believe he sold out your husband's team, and now he's working with Russian intelligence." Shock rippled across Rodriguez's face, followed by fury. "Do you have proof?" Kate slipped the flash drive into her hand. "If anything happens to me in the next 48 hours, get this to Admiral Thompson. No one else." Rodriguez studied her with new eyes. "You're not just an art teacher." Kate's gaze held steady. "Let's just say I understand what your husband went through better than most." Realization dawned. Rodriguez nodded once. "Then I'll help." Kate's phone buzzed. A message from the community center, emergency committee meeting, Veronica Pierce. "Of course." She turned to Rodriguez. "Remember 48 hours. If I'm gone, you know what to do." Rodriguez slipped the drive into her pocket. "Be careful, Winslow. Pierce plays for keeps." Kate exhaled, her voice a whisper. "So do I." What kind of woman weaponized a smile? Veronica Pierce did. At the emergency committee meeting that evening, she sat at the head of the long oak table, hands folded, lips curved in a way that could disarm the untrained eye. But Kate wasn't untrained. She saw the dagger hidden in every glance, every pause. The other wives fidgeted with their notepads and coffee cups, oblivious to the battle being fought beneath the surface. Veronica's voice carried silk and steel. "Our next order of business, the art program. Budget constraints mean we must prioritize. Does an elective hobby outweigh security and readiness?" Murmurs spread across the table. Kate sat quietly at the far end, pen tapping her notebook. "Children thrive when they can express themselves," she said evenly. "Your husbands leave them for deployments. Some never come back. This program helps them process what they can't say aloud." One woman nodded, eyes damp with unspoken grief. Another shifted uneasily, caught between loyalty to Veronica and quiet agreement with Kate. But Veronica leaned back, tilting her head. "Touching, but perhaps the program would be more convincing if its instructor weren't so mysterious." A ripple went through the room. "What exactly do you mean?" Kate asked softly. "Oh, come now," Veronica said, her nails glinting under the light. "You expect us to believe you're just an art teacher, combat-grade medical training, languages, access to base facilities that even I don't get. You patch up Marines like a field surgeon. Who are you really, Catherine?" The question hung heavy. Kate felt every eye land on her. Her mask threatened to crack. But she smiled faintly, almost apologetic. "My father was military. He taught me things growing up. Some of it stuck, that's all." It was a good lie, simple, believable, but Veronica's eyes narrowed. She wasn't convinced. The meeting dragged on, Veronica weaving subtle barbs into every topic. By the end, the program's budget was halved again. Kate gathered her notes in silence. She'd fought wars in alleys, jungles, deserts. But this petty sabotage wrapped in a committee meeting, was somehow harder. As she left, a hand caught her arm. Rodriguez, she leaned close, whispering. "She's digging Kate hard. And Pierce, he's tightening security around the hub. Your window is closing." Kate gave a small nod. "Thank you, keep the drive safe." She walked out into the cool evening, her chest tight. Every move she made was under a microscope now. The Russians weren't the only predators circling. That night her cottage felt different. The hum of the ocean couldn't drown the sense of eyes on her. She checked her sensors, two had been shifted. Not tripped, but moved. Someone had been here. Someone had searched her home. She sat on the couch, staring at the dark window, letting fear press against her ribs until she forced it down. Fear was natural, but fear couldn't control her. She lived too long with it as a companion. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number. She answered. Kate, the voice was low, gravel, achingly familiar. Her breath caught. James. 2 days out, situation worse than expected. You compromised. Not yet, she whispered. Stay that way. Whatever happens, don't blow cover until I'm there. Silence stretched, so much unsaid. Then he added softer, I've missed you. Her throat tightened. Me too. The line clicked dead. Kate sat in the silence, hand pressed to her chest, heart aching. 2 days, just 48 hours. But in her gut, she knew Veronica wouldn't let her survive that long. The next day, the base buzzed with preparation. An anniversary celebration for Pendleton's founding. Families arriving, dignitaries expected. Security stretched thin. The perfect stage for something catastrophic. Kate moved through the crowd, clipboard in hand, wearing the orange vest of an event coordinator. Another disguise, another layer of invisibility. She scanned faces, nodding clusters of men who didn't belong, Russian contractors masquerading as staff. Their posture, their shoes, their eyes. You could change uniforms, but you couldn't change the way predators watched a crowd. From across the plaza, she caught Veronica's gaze. The woman smiled, lifting her champagne flute in mock salute. It chilled Kate more than any weapon. By late afternoon, Admiral Thompson approached, his limp pronounced as he wove through the crowd. Winslow, walk with me. She matched his pace, weaving through families and Marines. You were right, he said without preamble. Intercepted chatter confirms a planned breach tonight. Pierce is at the center, Russians providing equipment. Goal, sever external comms, gain control of internal channels. Kate's jaw tightened. They'll own the base. Unless we stop them, Thompson said. He handed her a sealed envelope. Pentagon authorization. Black Ops clearance. If you can get into that hub tonight, you're sanctioned to do whatever's necessary. Kate slipped the envelope into her vest. And Pierce. Bring me proof, or bring me his head. As they parted, she felt the weight settle on her shoulders. Proof or death. The choice she had lived with her entire adult life. At dusk, the celebration began. Music played, children laughed, flags waved. Kate moved like a ghost through it all, eyes never still. Veronica worked the crowd like a queen, her husband at her side, and the Russians always near, always watching. Kate drifted to the edge of the plaza near the chapel. Rodriguez approached, pressing a small device into her hand. Keycard duplicator. Got you 30 seconds of clearance in the hub. After that, cameras will pick you up. Kate squeezed her hand in gratitude. If I don't come back. Don't say it, Rodriguez cut in. You will. Kate slipped away, blending into shadows as the first fireworks cracked in the sky. The crowd roared with delight. No one noticed the lone woman moving toward the east sector. Her badge beeped against the reader. The door clicked. Inside, the hum of machines filled the air. She moved quickly, plugging the duplicator into the terminal. Data streamed, every file, every frequency copied. She heard footsteps outside. Hurry. The progress bar crawled, 90%, 95%, the door handle turned. She yanked the drive, shoved it into her boot, and spun to the maintenance panel just as Pierce entered with 2 Russians. Well, well, he said smoothly. Art teacher in a server room, care to explain? Kate looked up, mask firmly in place. Leaky pipe, maintenance call. Pierce's eyes flicked to the open panel, then to the sweat on her temple. Interesting, because I don't recall authorizing maintenance here tonight. 1 Russian stepped forward. Kate's hand twitched toward her vest, but she stilled it. Too soon. Pierce circled her slowly, predator enjoying the hunt. My wife says you're hiding something. She's rarely wrong. Tell me, Catherine, what are you really doing here? Her voice was calm, steady, fixing what you broke. For the first time, his smile faltered. I think you and I are going to have a very long conversation. Behind him, the fireworks exploded again, lighting the room in red and gold. Kate knew the game had changed. She wasn't just being hunted, she had been caught. What would she break first, her mask or his patience? The server room was colder than the night outside, yet sweat traced Kate's temple as Colonel Pierce stepped closer, Russians flanking him like shadows. Fireworks from the celebration outside thudded against the walls, red flashes spilling through the blinds, strobing their faces in a rhythm that felt more like gunfire than celebration. Pierce tilted his head, studying her as if she were a puzzle he had finally found the missing piece to. Fixing what I broke. His voice was smooth, but his eyes burned. Careful, Catherine. Words like that could get you killed. Kate rose slowly from her crouch at the maintenance panel, clipboard still in hand. Calm, harmless until she chose otherwise. I'm just doing what I was told. A service call, leak reported. I don't write the tickets. The Russian to Pierce's left muttered in accented English. She lies. She is not maintenance. Pierce's smile widened shark-like. See, even my foreign friends can smell it. You're not who you say you are. You've never been who you say you are. Kate let silence answer. Silence had power. Silence made them fill in the gaps themselves. Pierce leaned closer, his voice dropping. You know what happened in Kandahar, don't you? You know who betrayed those men. Her jaw tightened, but her eyes stayed on him, unflinching. I know someone walked them into an ambush. I know someone cashed a Russian favor at the expense of American lives. For a flicker, his expression cracked, then the mask returned. Bold accusation for an art teacher. Bold truth, she said softly. The Russian stepped forward again, impatience radiating from his posture. Kill her. She has seen too much. Pierce lifted a hand, halting him. Not yet. She's worth more alive. He turned back to her, lowering his voice until only she could hear. Tell me, Catherine, when your mask falls, who will they see? CIA? NSA? Or just a scared little girl playing soldier? Her pulse drummed, but her voice remained steady. You'll know soon enough. Before he could answer, the commotion of laughter and music outside shifted, something sharper, darker. A ripple through the celebration. Kate's instincts prickled. She caught the faintest vibration from the terminal beside her, a coded ping she recognized. James. He was close. Pierce noticed her glance and smiled coldly, expecting someone. She forced a faint smirk. Just hopping, you brought better wine. His patience cracked. He gestured and the Russians grabbed her arms, wrenching them behind her back. Pain shot through her shoulder, but she bit it down. They shoved her into a chair, zip ties biting into her wrists. Pierce crouched in front of her, his voice silk over steel. You think you've hidden well, but Veronica's been peeling you apart piece by piece. Tonight she'll finish. And when your mask falls, you'll wish you had just stayed a teacher. Kate's eyes softened, almost pitying. And when your mask falls, Colonel, you'll wish you had never set foot in Kandahar. The words landed. His jaw flexed, rage barely leashed. He rose abruptly. Lock her down. I'll deal with her after the fireworks. The Russians dragged her to a storage room adjacent to the hub. They shoved her against a pipe, zip-tied her to it, then left with curt words in Russian. One guard remained outside the door, footsteps packing. Kate drew slow breaths, feeling the sting in her wrists. The air smelled of metal and dust. For a moment, she allowed herself to sag against the pipe, the weight of exhaustion pressing. Fear whispered at the edges of her mind. What if James didn't make it in time? What if Pierce silenced her before proof reached anyone? She closed her eyes, memory carrying her backward again, to the quiet nights in Kandahar when she and James had talked in whispers under the stars. He had asked her once, "What keeps you going?" She had answered, "The children I might never meet, the ones who need to grow up believing strength doesn't always wear a uniform." That was still true. The children, her students, the base families, they deserved safety, dignity. Her fingers flexed, searching. The Russians had tied her tight, but not perfectly. Her thumb brushed the slim piece of metal she had hidden in the seam of her vest, a lockpick small enough to evade even Spetsnaz hands. Slowly, carefully, she worked at the tie, every movement timed with the boom of fireworks outside. Minutes stretched, sweat stung her eyes, the plastic strained, then snapped. She stilled, listening. The guard still paced. She slipped the lockpick back into her vest and pulled the broken tie free. Her wrists throbbed, but she was loose. Now came the harder part, escaping without being noticed. The packing stopped, silence pressed against the door, then a voice in Russian, sharp, questioning. The handle turned. Kate crouched low, pressing her body against the pipe. The door opened, the guard stepping in, suspicion in his eyes. He scanned the shadows, then too late, realized she was gone from where he'd left her. She exploded upward, slamming her shoulder into his ribs, driving him against the wall. His grunt drowned under the next firework. She twisted his wrist, the pistol clattering free. A strike to his throat silenced him before he could shout. He slumped to the floor. Kate caught her breath, checked the hall, and slipped out. The celebration roared in the distance, masking her movements. She moved swiftly, keeping to shadows, every sense alive. The flash drive in her boot felt heavier now. It was her lifeline, the only proof that could take Pierce down. She rounded a corner, froze. Veronica Pierce stood there, immaculate even under the harsh fluorescent light. No guards, no pretense, just her and that cold, triumphant smile. "I knew it," Veronica whispered. "You're not who you pretend to be." Kate steadied her breath. "Neither are you." For the first time, Veronica's smile faltered. Kate stepped closer, voice low, cutting. "You can polish your nails and host your committees, but behind that you're SVR. You've been watching me, digging, and now you're standing here without your husband's protection. That's a dangerous mistake." Veronica's composure cracked just slightly. "You don't know what you're up against." "Neither do you," Kate said softly. "Because my mask isn't what keeps me alive. It's what keeps people like you from understanding how far I'll go." They stood in silence, the tension taut as wire. Then footsteps echoed from the far end of the hall. Pierce's voice, sharp, barking orders. Veronica's eyes flicked that way, then back to Kate. And in that flicker, Kate saw it, fear. She vanished into the stairwell before Pierce rounded the corner. Heart pounding, she descended into the underlevels of the base, slipping into the maze of tunnels that had once been built as shelters. Her phone buzzed once, a coded ping. "James." He was here. She pressed her back to the cold wall, clutching the drive, whispering to herself. "Hold the line, Kate, just a little longer." Above her, fireworks cracked and burst, but down here, the war was only beginning. What did it feel like when a ghost came home? For Kate, it was one vibration on her phone, a single coded ping that said more than words ever could. He was here. James Winslow, her husband, her partner, her shadow. The underground tunnel was cold, damp air pressing against her skin, but her heart warmed in a way it hadn't in years. Relief, fear, love. They all hit at once, tangling in her chest until she could barely breathe. She moved quickly, boots silent on concrete, weaving through the maze of passageways beneath Camp Pendleton. Few knew these tunnels existed anymore, but Kate and James had memorized them long ago, back when their assignments had overlapped in ways neither agency nor command had ever sanctioned. A shadow moved at the far end of the corridor, broad shoulders, fluid stride, rifle at low ready. She knew the silhouette before her mind confirmed it. "James." His head snapped up. Even in the dim light, she saw his face, the hard lines of a man who'd carried too many missions, too many ghosts, but eyes that softened the moment they landed on her. "Kate," he breathed. She wanted to run to him, but training and instinct froze her. For a beat, they stood there just staring. Two lives lived in parallel, colliding again in the worst of circumstances. Then he crossed the distance in 3 long strides and pulled her into his arms. For one suspended moment, the war fell away. His hand pressed against the back of her head, her face buried against his chest, the steady thud of his heartbeat grounding her. "You're late," she whispered, her voice trembling more than she wanted. "Traffic," he muttered drily. Then pulling back just enough to see her face, his eyes hardened. "You're compromised." She nodded. "Pierce has me in his sights. Veronica, too. I've got proof on a drive, but they know I'm not just a teacher anymore." James's jaw clenched. "Then we don't have time." Footsteps echoed distantly above. Russians moving, Pierce barking orders. The celebration outside had shifted too, less laughter, more nervous energy. Something was coming. James pulled a tablet from his pack, flicked it on. "They're staging an override of base comms. Once they lock it, they'll own every channel. No reinforcements, no warnings. This whole base becomes their playground." Kate handed him the flash drive. "I ghosted their system. Everything on here, frequencies, equipment, Russian code names." He plugged it in, eyes scanning rapidly. "You did good, damn good. This is enough to hang Pierce twice over." Her lips curved faintly. "I learned from the best." For the first time his mouth twitched in the hint of a smile, but it vanished as fast as it came. "We need to move. Once he realizes you slipped the guard, Pierce will assume you're underground. He'll send a team." They moved together, instinctively falling back into the rhythm they had always shared. He scanned corners, rifle steady. She checked rear, pistol in hand. Silent signals passed between them like old music. Step, pause, clear. At a junction, James halted, crouching, fresh bootprints in the dust. Russian treads. Kate dropped low beside him. He whispered, "3 ahead, moving slow." She nodded, fingers brushing the knife at her belt. But James's hand caught hers, eyes locking. "No, you're not doing this." Her brows knit. "Since when do you give orders?" "Since I almost lost you in Fallujah," he whispered fiercely. "You've carried this mission far enough, you're out." Anger flared hot in her chest. "I've kept this cover for years, I've bled for it. Don't tell me I'm out now." His voice softened, but his eyes burned. "I can't watch you die, Kate." For a heartbeat, silence pressed between them. She saw his fear, raw and naked under the hard soldier's mask. And she felt her own, the same fear mirrored. She touched his cheek with her free hand. "You won't, not tonight, not if we do this together." He closed his eyes briefly, then nodded. "Together." The Russians appeared seconds later, moving down the corridor with rifles raised. James pressed her back into the alcove. 3 fingers, countdown. On one they moved, silent, efficient, Ghost and Nightingale, 2 predators reclaiming the hunt. It was over in 20 seconds. 3 Russians down, their weapons silenced. James checked pulses, Kate gathered comms gear, evidence piled higher. They pressed forward deeper into the tunnels until a metal ladder led upward. James listened. Voices above, Pierce, Veronica, and more Russians. Kate's stomach tightened. "They're staging it here tonight." "Not if we cut the head off first," James muttered. But she heard the hesitation in his voice. This wasn't just another op. This was betrayal, rot in the bones of their own command. It wasn't clean. It would never be clean. She caught his hand, squeezing once. "Whatever happens, we hold the line, for the kids, for the men in Kandahar, for us." His eyes softened. He kissed her forehead, quick, fierce, "For us." They climbed. The hatch opened into a storage hangar, dimly lit, filled with crates and cables. Russians worked in clusters, assembling equipment. Veronica stood at the center, clipboard in hand, directing with a general's precision. And beside her, Colonel Pierce, phone pressed to his ear, voice cold. "Activation within the hour. Yes, Moscow will be satisfied. Winslow is contained. No, she won't be a problem." Kate felt James stiffen beside her. His hand hovered near the trigger. She whispered, "Proof first, then justice." They slipped along the catwalk, cameras recording every move. Kate pulled a micro-drone from her vest, released it silently. It buzzed overhead, capturing video of the Russians wiring explosives into the comm servers. Evidence. Irrefutable. But then Veronica turned, her gaze scanning the shadows. For one sickening moment, her eyes locked on Kate. A smile spread across her face. "Hello, Catherine." Her voice carried across the hangar, smooth and sharp. "You and your ghost are late." Every Russian froze, rifles lifted. Pierce spun, fury flooding his features. The trap had closed. James raised his weapon, back pressing against Kate. So much for subtle. Kate's pulse hammered, but her voice stayed calm. "Sometimes dignity doesn't whisper, James. Sometimes it fights." "Then let's fight," he said. The hangar erupted. How long could two people hold a line against an army? Kate didn't know, but she and James had never been the kind to count numbers when resolve mattered more. Back to back in the hangar, rifles raised, they stood at the center of a circle of Russians with Colonel Pierce and Veronica pulling the strings. Veronica's heels clicked as she stepped closer, her smile painted sharp under the floodlights. "Do you really think you can win here? 2 against 20. Kate's breath steadied, pulse thrumming. "We don't need to win," she said quietly. "We just need to show the truth." Pierce barked a bitter laugh. "The truth? Truth is malleable. Truth is what we tell them it is. And right now the truth is you're a rogue operative, a liability, a woman who deceived the people around her. Once you're gone, no one will care who pulled the trigger." His words cut deeper than she expected, because he wasn't entirely wrong. How many lies had she stacked on top of each other to build her cover? How many people had she let believe she was harmless, ordinary? James's hand brushed hers, grounding her. His voice was low, steady. "Don't let him in, Kate." The first Russian moved. James dropped him with a clean shot, the silencer coughing quietly. Chaos snapped. Fire erupted. Muzzle flashes cut the dark. Kate dove behind a crate, returning fire with precision, every bullet measured. James flanked, moving like water, like a man born to turn chaos into order. But they were outnumbered. For every Russian they dropped, more pressed forward. Bullets shredded wood, ricocheted off steel. Sparks lit the air. Kate's lungs burned as she reloaded, hands steady despite the pounding in her chest. Across the hangar, Veronica stood untouched, serene, watching like a queen watching pawns move. Pierce shouted over the din, "Don't kill them yet, I want them alive." The words cut through Kate's haze. Alive meant tortured. Alive meant exploited. Alive meant the children she taught, the families she cared for, would someday read a twisted version of her story. "Not alive, not like that." She grabbed James's arm. "We need to move, north exit." They sprinted, weaving through crates. Bullets snapped past, too close. James returned fire, his jaw clenched, his movements mechanical. He was running on instinct now, the part of him she'd always feared, the ghost that didn't stop until every threat was erased. They reached the exit, but the door was sealed, reinforced, locked. Kate cursed under her breath. "They've contained us." James scanned the room. "Then we make our own exit." He pulled a block of C4 from his pack, hands moving fast. Kate covered him, firing short bursts to keep the Russians back. Her shoulder jolted as a bullet grazed her arm. Pain seared hot, but she bit it down, kept shooting. 30 seconds, James shouted. 30 seconds felt like a lifetime under fire. Kate's vision blurred at the edges, her blood dripping, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. Every child's face, every Marine's family, she saw them all. They deserved this fight. The charge blew, the door crumpling inward in a roar of smoke and flame. Fresh air rushed in. They barreled through, stumbling into the night, the cool wind against their sweat-drenched skin. But Pierce wasn't far behind. His voice thundered from the smoke. "You can't run from me, Winslows." Kate froze for half a heartbeat. Winslows, he knew. He knew their marriage, the secret they had buried so carefully. James's hand tightened on her shoulder. "Keep moving." They sprinted into the open, the celebration plaza now eerily quiet. Families had been evacuated, Marines redirected. The base was hollow, an empty stage for the real war playing out in shadows. They ducked into the chapel, doors slamming shut behind them. Kate pressed her back to the wall, lungs heaving. Her arm throbbed, blood soaking her sleeve. James ripped fabric from his shirt, wrapping her wound with rough tenderness. His eyes flicked up to hers. "You're losing blood." She forced a shaky smile. "Just a scratch. I've had worse in art class." He almost smiled, but his eyes burned. "Don't joke with me now." Silence pressed between them, heavy and raw. For a moment they weren't Ghost and Nightingale. They were just James and Kate, two people who had carried too much for too long. Her hand caught his wrist, her voice trembling. "If we don't make it." "Don't," he snapped, sharper than he meant. His breath shuddered. "Softer, don't you dare say goodbye." Her throat ached. She swallowed, nodding. The doors creaked. Heavy footsteps outside. Russians, Pierce, Veronica, they were surrounding the chapel. James raised his rifle, eyes steady again. "They want us alive. That's their mistake." Kate chambered around, leaning into the wall, her voice barely a whisper. "Then let's show them what alive looks like." The doors burst inward. Russians flooded in. The chapel filled with smoke, gunfire, splintering wood. Stained glass shattered, raining color onto the pews. Kate moved with lethal grace, weaving between pews, firing in controlled bursts. James was a storm, precise and unrelenting. Together, they carved a path through the tide. But still they came, more and more. Kate's arms screamed with pain, her legs heavy, but she kept going. She couldn't stop. Not here, not now. Through the smoke, she saw Veronica at the door, untouched, her smile chilling. Their eyes locked. Veronica raised her phone, recording, framing Kate in the chaos. Not just trying to kill her, trying to destroy her reputation, turn her into the villain. Kate's fury burned hotter than the pain. With a single shot, she shattered the phone in Veronica's hand. The woman's composure cracked for the first time, her face twisting with rage. But in that moment of satisfaction, Kate missed the shadow to her side. A Russian lunged, rifle butt swinging. She turned too late. The blow caught her temple, stars exploding across her vision. She crumpled, darkness swallowing her. The last thing she heard was James's roar, feral, desperate, as he fought to reach her. Then silence. What does the world sound like when you're drifting between life and death? For Kate, it was muffled thunder, a heartbeat echoing, voices bent and distorted. Then slowly, the sharp sting of cold stone beneath her cheek. Her eyes flickered open. The chapel's ceiling loomed above, fractured by smoke and firelight. The air smelled of gunpowder and dust. Somewhere distant, the muffled clash of fists, the roar of a man she knew better than herself. "James." She forced her body upright, head spinning, vision swimming. Her wrists were bound now, rough rope biting her skin. She was on the altar like a sacrifice displayed. Across the nave, Colonel Pierce stood tall, blood on his uniform but triumph in his eyes. Veronica hovered near him, her hand wrapped, phone shattered, rage burning sharp in her gaze. And James, her heart clenched. James was on his knees, arms bound behind him, two Russians forcing him down. His face was bloodied, his chest rising heavy, but his eyes still burned like fire. Pierce's voice rang out, calm and cold. "There they are, ladies and gentlemen, Ghost and Nightingale, my two most dangerous liabilities exposed at last." He paced slowly, savoring it. The CIA's phantom operative and the Navy's most disobedient SEAL, married in secret. Living lies in plain sight. Tonight their masks fall and the truth is mine to shape. Veronica's smile returned, thin and poisonous. "We'll stream it. Show the world a traitor wife and her assassin husband. Moscow will see victory. Washington will see only disgrace." Kate swallowed hard, forcing strength into her voice. "You think reputation is truth, Pierce? That a video, a headline will erase what you've done. Kandahar will haunt you. Every name on that wall will bleed through your lies." For the first time, something flickered in his eyes, but he crushed it, sneering. "History is written by survivors, and you won't be among them." He drew his pistol, leveled it at James. "First, I kill your ghost, then I break you." The world slowed. Kate's breath caught, her mind screaming, her body straining against the ropes. Not like this, not him. But James met her eyes and smiled. Even bloodied, even on his knees, he smiled. "Together," he mouthed. And in that moment she remembered everything. Fallujah, Kandahar, the beach where she had baked bread with trembling hands while hiding knives in the cupboards, every lie they had told, every truth they had carried alone. Her hands twisted, rope grinding against skin. She forced her wrists outward, pain lancing, blood slicking. The fibers frayed, stretched, snapped. She moved before Pierce could register. Her hand closed around the shard of stained glass at her side, glittering red and blue. She rose, lunged, and drove it into the Russian nearest, James. The man screamed, collapsing. James surged up, headbutting the other guard, wrenching free. In a blur, he had the man's rifle, swinging it in a brutal arc that dropped him cold. "Kate," James roared. She was already moving, diving for Pierce's arm. The pistol fired, deafening in the chapel, the round burying in the altar wood inches from her face. Her fist slammed into his wrist, the gun skittering across the stone floor. They grappled, predator against predator. Pierce was strong, trained, ruthless. But Kate had something he didn't, rage honed into purpose. "You sold them out," she spat, twisting his arm. 16 men in Kandahar, you left them to die for Russian gold." He snarled, shoving her back. "They were pawns just like you." James barreled into him then, the two men crashing against a pew. Wood splintered. Pierce fought like a cornered wolf, knife flashing in his hand. James caught the blade with his forearm, blood spilling, but drove his knee into Pierce's chest. Kate grabbed the fallen pistol, hands steady despite the tremor in her chest. She leveled it at Pierce's head. "Kate," James rasped, holding Pierce down. "Do it." For a heartbeat she froze. She saw not just the traitor but the man he once had been. A Marine, a leader, someone who had chosen betrayal over honor, and she felt the weight of every decision she had ever made. Pierce spat blood, sneering up at her. "You don't have the courage. You hide behind masks. You'll always hide." Kate's breath shook. She steadied the pistol, and with a voice low and certain she answered, "Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts." The shot cracked like thunder. Pierce went still. Silence fell heavy in the chapel, broken only by Kate's ragged breaths. Her hands trembled as she lowered the pistol, her body suddenly aware of every bruise, every cut, every drop of blood. James rose, clutching his bleeding arm, his eyes on her. For a moment neither spoke. Then he reached out, cupping her face in his rough hand. "You did what had to be done," he whispered. Tears stung her eyes, but she shook her head. "No, we did." Veronica's shriek cut through the quiet. She scrambled for the fallen phone, fury twisting her face. But before she could lift it, Rodriguez stormed through the broken doors with a squad of Marines, rifles raised. "Drop it, Veronica," Rodriguez barked. Veronica froze, caught at last. The Marines surged in, securing the Russians, gathering evidence, sealing the scene. Kate exhaled, her whole body sagging. The fight was over. Later, as dawn broke over Camp Pendleton, Kate and James sat on the chapel steps, side by side. Her head rested against his shoulder, his arm around her despite the bandages on his wounds. The base bustled with cleanup, but here, for this moment, they were just two souls who had survived. "You're still bleeding," she murmured. "So are you," he said softly. They both laughed, weak and tired but real. She looked at him, eyes shining in the morning light. "What happens now?" James squeezed her hand. "Now we stop hiding, we tell the truth, not for us, for them." He gestured toward the base, toward the families, the the children who would never know how close darkness had come. Kate nodded, her chest heavy but lighter somehow too, for them. The sun rose higher, spilling gold across the ocean, painting the world in light again. And as the waves crashed in the distance, Kate Winslow, the art teacher, the operative, the wife, the survivor, understood the truth she would carry forever. That sometimes strength doesn't roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it kneels in the sand with seashells, bakes bread with trembling hands, smiles when the world doubts you. And sometimes, when the moment comes, it pulls the trigger not out of vengeance, but out of love, out of duty, out of the quiet dignity of survival. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.